Telltale Guys, the Quebec Woods Encounter.
What's your ETA? We'll be there in 2 minutes. Come on, we have lives to save here.
Yes, indeed. Telltale Guys back again. I'm Josh, and with me is Zane. Zane, I'm liking the hat. What's up with that this week?
Just didn't shower this morning, so
Okay. Don't want your
golf.
smelly head to infect the podcast.
Yeah. Basically, it's like, I just want to wear my golf hat today. Kind of feeling
Okay.
it.
I didn't
Feel
know
like
there was a theme on it for today, but that's nice.
no,
How was
I
your
don't
week?
I don't have any UFO alien theme type stuff, which we will talk about in a little bit. Yeah, unfortunately, no. Do you have anything like that, or are you that into them where you have something themed?
Yeah, I didn't have any alien stuff. I was like, oh man, it'd be cool if I had like a piece of metal that came from a spaceship or something, but that would be an incredible story of itself. And I
Yeah,
didn't have any trinkets like that for this particular show. But I am excited about the alien topics in general. There's been a lot of news lately with aliens. I don't know if I don't think maybe I'll mention this real quick because I think
sure.
the U.S. Congress just had a hearing about more, UAPs or what they call it. So they
Right.
were talking about more stuff that came out in that. Nothing like huge, but basically they're just reinforcing what they've already admitted. Like, hey, there's these spacecraft flying around, and from time to time, we and other countries try to get them and develop the technology from them. So that's a little bit new. Maybe they're like saying, yeah, we go recover the stuff and make new things with whatever we discover on it. So it's like a kind of like an arms race to see who can get to one first, I believe. But
that kind of gave me just the heebie-jeebies, just like arms race with whatever alien tech or yeah, it seems I saw some of those articles about those hearings too, and it seems like maybe because we're getting a new administration, maybe there's just going to be a faster release of documents or anything, or that's just the vibe I'm getting. Not that I want that or I don't, but I'm getting that vibe. So we'll see what happens in the next year or so.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be exciting. I don't know if they're going to disclose stuff because they, the powers that be don't like to relinquish that much to us peons. But who knows? Maybe if the JFK stuff comes out, that'd be cool. But that's
that
a
would be
maybe aliens off.
That would be a step in the right direction, I guess. So just real quick, do you think these are real aliens kind of, or do you think it's like a mix of like human tech that we have that's a little bit advanced?
You mean for the UAPs and stuff from the government stuff? Oh god, I mean, it's you need a lot of evidence for claims, I guess, but I mean, there's so many different phenomenon that I think kind of get wrapped up into the umbrella term of UFOs or UAPs or whatever. I think like the physical things that are being seen that the government's released footage of, I think that's either some kind of alien technology as the traditional thoughts would go, or maybe they live under our oceans, which are vast. I don't know if they would be considered aliens then. Maybe there's some kind of like breakaway species and just lives under the water and develops stuff. Who knows? I mean, it's so much crazy stuff, but until we get some hard evidence of something, bodies or a ship, which I think they already have, they just don't want to share it. But,
and better footage too. I've heard on a podcast, like they're like government does have really good footage, but they're just not releasing it.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see the picture of the 3-fingered alien waving to you or something like that, or but if it's not aliens, it's some kind of like high strangeness phenomenon, which maybe we'll get into a little bit on this episode here, Zane. What do we got cooking for the folks today?
Well, so our topic today is actually haunted mules from Texas. I'm just kidding. We're doing aliens. If you couldn't have guessed. So for this episode, I wanted to take a dive into actually a pretty incredible story that a couple of members of my family had they brought it up to me kind of randomly at Thanksgiving when I was younger, and it kind of freaked me out because to kind of set the stage at this point in my life, like preteen, almost teenage, my big fear growing up was aliens, hands down, without a doubt. And I was specifically afraid of the little kind of gray creatures, the
Oh,
gray, as we call them.
yeah.
Do not like them. This gives me heebie-jeebies just looking at them. But these guys are like 3 foot tall, puny bodies, big heads.
Heads. No,
And
they're very stylish.
what's that?
Their heads are very stylish. I like their look.
You do like them? Well, I do. I do not like them.
Yeah. Yeah, the no
But
hair look is very popular in
oh,
interstellar
I
travel.
see. I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. Yeah. Okay. They shave. They buzzed and shaved their head before the airing of this podcast, like you like to do. So
Yes.
they're looking good. But yeah, these are kind of like the mainstream pop culture aliens that we all think of, and I've hated them pretty much my whole life. I don't mind them as much now, but they still kind of blah blah blah. Uh, but basically, so a big part of this fear of aliens was obviously abduction. I thought that might be happening to me, and I was always terrified of this. I was always afraid there might be like a little bit of experiments going on me, and I did not want that to happen. And there's this reminds me of this one movie called Fire in the Sky, which was like early '90s, I believe. And it
Mm-hmm.
has probably one of the most horrifying abduction scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Maybe there's some more modern movies, but I'm a wuss and I don't watch any alien horror movies that much. But there's a couple. I don't want to like. I kind of thought about showing the clip of it, but this shows you how terrifying it is, anyways. And I'd suggest anyone who's got an interest in stuff to watch this movie because it is pretty good stuff.
Did you like the Alien movie? You know, with Ridley Scott.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, when I was at the stage of my life, I was kind of freaked out to see that movie too. But that one was a little better. You know, it was a little bit more easier for me to take. What's amazing about that movie is like there isn't a lot of like high tech in that first one. It's a lot
Yeah.
of like, matte paintings and all that. And it still looks really good. Just like the same thing with 2001 and the Space Odyssey. Like
Mm-hmm.
they did a good job of, obviously they didn't really have much tech back then, but it looks really good even
Oh
today.
yeah, holds up. Practical effects superior to CGI in most cases, in my
Agreed.
opinion. But
I mean, CGI is really good these days, but they rely on it way too much.
yeah, it loses its soul.
Yeah. And
Much
so
like when you get abducted by aliens, you lose your soul.
you
That's what they do.
lose part of yourself, or something like that. But basically, at this point too, so I was kind of always looking around at the skies and all that because I always freaked out like some UFO was coming for me. And I actually have like a few incidents in my life. This isn't a photo I took, but this is similar to where I saw a couple of UFOs. And this is kind of setting the stage for this whole episode. But I remember I was at baseball practice. I saw a red orange globe like this, just kind of hovering around in the sky, kind of like the same distance you see here, pretty far away. And all of a sudden, it just shot away like light speed out into orbit. So that was kind of crazy. I've seen something like this. Strangely enough, at another baseball practice, we were driving along to baseball practice. It was nighttime. It was summer, and I had the windows open, and I can see up in the sky, like not too far up, maybe a few 100 feet up, kind of this like triangular shape with like lights like this. And I had no idea what this was. And then later, during baseball practice, we all kind of heard this huge rushing sound. And it was almost like this craft had just flown away. So that was interesting.
How
And then
far above your head was this thing?
I would say about like a couple 100 feet, maybe
Mm,
300 feet. So not too high and not too low.
like a
That
football
freaked me
field
out.
above you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So interesting encounters right here. Obviously, these are just UFOs.
Oh
Oh,
God.
spoiled that. So I also saw like one time it was like a black balloon type. Like it looked like three black orbs, maybe only 100 feet up, floating above me, but I think they were just balloons now that I'm thinking about it. But so
were you in like the Dollar Tree and it was just floating above?
I was in the car again. Yeah, it could have been some balloons from the Dollar Tree or Party City, but you know, I say I've had these experiences. I'm wondering if I'm just like I was so kind of scared of these things. Maybe I was just making it up in my brain. I don't know.
And maybe you're being followed with the family lineage.
Maybe. But yeah, that's a good segue into our interview. A couple of family members of mine who had this experience, an alien encounter experience, nothing like UFOs. So we'll get to kind of the big tamale here. So, like I said, at this point of time in my life, I was fearful ETs, but I had a couple family members who just nonchalantly told me at Thanksgiving that they encountered a weird and possibly alien-like creature in the countryside in the woods of Quebec, Canada, back in the early 70s. This story, it floored me and it terrified me. And here's just what they encountered. All right, so I'm here with some family members to kind of just talk about their experience they had with this possible, I guess, interstellar creature. It's kind of this whole encounter that's always fascinated me when I was told about it, especially when I was younger. I was afraid of these type of things, but I just wanted to bring family on so they can talk about it and elaborate. And I just want to say, so I guess we'll start out, describe, what year this was, where you were, kind of your situation, living arrangements, all that. I just want to hear the background.
I was born in New York in 1952, but I was raised in California. However, in 11th grade, our family, Dad, Mom, Brother Mike, and myself, we moved to Toronto, Canada due to a job change. I graduated from a Toronto high school in 1970. After graduating, my dad moved us again, seeking his fortune in a carpet factory in Quebec. I worked alongside my dad at Bigelow Carpets, hoping to save enough money to go back to California. Winters in Quebec are extremely cold. The snow was higher than the cabin we lived in. During April, the snow melted and the ground was very muddy. One morning, we decided to go trout fishing. We trudged down the muddy, snowy road. The trout stream was about a mile away. We reached about a half mile away when a green figure popped out of the woods. It was a green alien of some type, standing over 6 feet tall. Wow. We were captivated by that strange figure that looked like a frogman.
When you say frogman, what do you mean, like frogman? Like just big eyes, or?
Yeah, exaggerated eyes, exactly. And there was almost like a glass covering of his face. And it's, this is in the woods, so this is very unusual. And then the next step was really unusual. The green figure did a double take, like an old black and white stand-up comedian, and backed up into the nearby woods.
You mean like black and white, like comedy movie, like kind of?
Yeah, like Laurel and Hardy, that type of thing. Could have been one of those two. It was just like something old time, It was weird, and the way he walked was unusual. It was like he was just not flexible or anything. It was very stiff, very, very unusual.
Would you say he was was he in a suit or was he like naked?
He definitely wasn't naked. There was nothing protruding or anything. It was definitely covered in some way, so you had no sense of nakedness. No.
Now, this for my other family member, does this sound pretty similar, or do you have any other kind of memories of this initial encounter?
It was essentially like he said. I'd describe it a little bit differently, but what I would say is that it is true that my father and Alan and I were walking down a muddy path, and it just rained. And so when this figure, which to me was, dark olive in color, kind of looked like a frogman, but why would a frogman be walking in the middle of the woods? He walked from right to left across the path in front of us. It was a very muddy path, as we've all said. I would say it was perhaps between 20 to 30 feet away from us. And when he walked across the path, and he did sort of stop, I'm not sure if he did a double take, but he definitely did stop and sort of like pause and then continue.
Wow.
And then when we went up to take a look at where he had crossed, the thing that seemed very, it was strange to see this figure. What was even stranger was to find that there were no footprints.
What?
In the path, yes. I mean, It's muddy and rainy. There should have been some sort of footprints, but there was no trace that he had crossed our path.
Now, this is where our memories are a little bit different because we looked at the footprints in snow and we walked on, never discussing the incident. But I do remember the footprints.
Oh, you do? Okay.
So this happened many, many years ago, of course. So our memories, and we haven't really discussed this in detail.
But there are no footprints in the mud.
Yeah, I did.
In the path.
Yeah, I definitely saw the footprints because. So we'll have to.
It was winter.
Disagree on that one.
There are no footprints.
It was cold winter and it was snowy and muddy.
No, it's like a spring runoff, where it's muddy. Snow's melting and there's rain, so there's a really muddy path.
Okay.
And he did cross the path.
So
no footprints.
We did proceed to go on to fishing, and we really didn't discuss it at that point. And we fished for about an hour, enjoying the day. Then the three of us walked back, and I remember seeing the alien footprints. And we started to talk about the green alien only then. And my theory about why this all happened, why the delay in talking about the green figure, I have a feeling this is why UFOs are not reported. There was a feeling that this was not happening. However, we know it did happen, but it was like a dream.
And for Grandpa, do you guys remember kind of when you first encountered this creature, do you remember seeing how Grandpa reacted at all? I know you said you guys didn't talk for a while until after going back, but was there any initial reaction from him?
I believe we were in front of Dad when we were walking. I thought Dad was behind us. What do you say?
I would say yes, that's probably true. I think we were all, in my feeling, we were all stunned that this was happening. And then the awkward movements by the, let's call it the green alien, backing up into the forest and kind of like a silent movie type way. Made it so unusual that, at the time we didn't really even talk about it. And then we did our fun at trout fishing, which was always a great experience. And then we walked back, and then we did start to talk about it, but only after that passage of time.
I think you mentioned, we talked about the movie Signs, where they had kind of a 6 foot tall green alien. I think both of you have seen that. Would you say that kind of similar, just to kind of give a visual to the audience?
Yeah, I remember Signs. It was somewhat similar, but I always felt that if you were going to say he was tall, yeah, he's tall, he or she or it or whatever. I would not have called what we saw fat. It seemed sort of lean. Definitely, dark olive green in color. Not reflective in any way. It was sort of a dull, nothing shiny. Could not see eyes or nose or ears or anything like that. So that was one of the things. Like, you could not see a face. Really, you saw a shape of a head, and to me, I always called it like a light bulb head, but sort of like almost like a Snoopy head in a way, except it was dark olive in color.
You mentioned before like Frogman, which kind of reminds me of like maybe more like a military type scuba outfit. Did this creature or thing give off any vibe that it could have been a human dressed in some sort of like aquatic gear, just walking around?
I didn't feel that way. Going back to that Signs movie, what struck me about that Signs movie is when Mel Gibson played the father, I believe, and he starts to freak out, and then they tell him, "Dad, you're supposed to protect us." And that's what I remember from that. And I think Dad was the protector. He was kind of a steady Eddie guy, and so he was just watching it, and he didn't remark about it, but I think he knew he was there, and something wouldn't go wrong with him there.
And Grandpa was in the Navy, so definitely had military background, so I'm sure he would have been ready to protect if anything happened. But it just sounds like the creature got a little shocked that you were there, because it sounds like a pretty desolate area in Quebec in the woods, and then it just left.
I think the incident was like 6 or 7 seconds.
Wow.
The creature crossing our path.
And so you guys kind of talked about it briefly after, and it really wasn't, from what I've heard, really wasn't brought up that much years later or anything. It was just such a weird thing that you guys didn't talk about it too much, right?
I think occasionally at parties we talk about it every once in a while, but I don't.
It's a good party conversation.
It's a party conversation, but it wasn't like we went to the authorities to say, "Hey, we saw this green light bulb headed dark olive thing cross the woods," which is what we saw. But it was unusual. Definitely, 1972, the word alien didn't come across too much. I had the things like Eric von Daniken was, had his book, Chariots of the Gods, and things like that. Oh, yeah. But I don't think that was really on our mind. What appeared to us, I think, was we saw this thing, it crossed our path. It didn't really look human, but I can't say it looked like an alien, because I don't know what an alien looks like, but it definitely looked unusual. Well,
I'm not sure what year, but I definitely remember a book called Flying Saucers, Serious Business by Frank Edwards, and that really moved me to be interested in aliens and feel like there's something out there. He was a very good writer. So I was aware of what was going on, and I felt like it could happen for sure, and it did happen.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much you guys know about it, but really kind of the mid to late 50s and 60s, a lot more sightings of UFOs, and then Area 51 and all that drama really started happening, and more of these type of sightings, maybe not necessarily aliens, but UFOs were really popping up around that time period. So kind of similar time frame. So maybe you guys ran across one. So I guess kind of just to wrap this up, what do you both think you saw?
Well, it was, first of all, I want to say we're in a very isolated area. We're English speaking, of course. Americans, everybody around us was speaking French. This is French Canada. So we were extremely isolated as never before. So that made it more eerie. And it wasn't like we could go across the street and tell anybody about this, because we didn't speak French. They did, and we didn't have any close friends. So we were in a very strange, isolated time in our lives.
But I never had the feeling we were talking to a French alien. It just never gave off those vibes. It was more like, if it was sort of like an alien, it was sort of like a utility man alien, or somebody who was going from one place to another to do something.
Had some sort of task.
Task, yeah, it seemed like a task. Seemed like somebody on a task, and I didn't see the alien carrying a fishing rod or anything like that, but it was. Yeah, and that was the thing. I didn't really see the alien have any equipment, or whatever it was. I hesitate to call it alien, but sort of. It seemed so unusual. I'm not sure what I saw.
And it's just pretty fascinating that you guys this happened and you just kind of went fishing, and it's interesting how us as humans, we will have these really weird random experiences and we kind of just go on with our day because we're trying to process it. So that's a very very interesting story.
We weren't blasé about it. It wasn't sort of like, yeah, well, that was an alien, right?
Yeah.
No, definitely.
We definitely were sort of stunned by it, and we did have our discussions about it later. So it did impact us. It's seldom you see something like that, where we were. Yeah. So, well, we can't really say what we saw.
Well, all right. So that was a crazy story, huh?
Yeah, that was quite the experience they had there. I can see why that would be freaky for you to hear that.
Yeah, especially when I was all fearful of aliens. But they both had very good, vivid memories of it. Maybe a couple details were a little different, but they saw something and it was pretty consistent. And to kind of give the audience and you, Josh, like a little more context, things were really charged politically in that area. So at that time period, or maybe it was kind of wrapping up, there was a militant in Quebec separatist group called the Front de Liberation de Quebec, which wanted to establish an independent and socialist Quebec. And so there were kind of like terrorist attacks. People were being kidnapped. This group especially, they wanted everyone to speak French. So any Americans who were residing in Quebec at this time were kind of fearful because a lot of them didn't speak French, like my family. So there was kind of a lot of kind of fear going on at this point. So, that's why I'm kind of thinking, maybe there was a lot of military action going on right now. And, was this creature maybe some sort of military soldier in some sort of frogman outfit? I mean, maybe a stretch, but there's a lot of intense stuff going on right now when they had this sighting. So just to kind of give you a context of what was going on in Canadian socio-political politics.
That is an interesting detail to add there, Zane. I wasn't familiar with the political unrest in Quebec at that time, and that was a early 70s. But I guess being in the United States, you probably wouldn't have heard too much about and be familiar with so much that's going on up there.
Sure.
Did you want to go into a little bit more of what they talked about here, or are we holding that off?
Yeah, no. I just wanted to,
Okay.
After kind of touching on that, I kind of wanted to talk about what they saw real quick.
Okay.
So basically 6 foot tall, greenish alien, maybe had big eyes, maybe had some sort of helmet type thing going on. But to kind of give you context, it really reminded me of what we talked about was like this signs type creature. And here it, kind of walking around, doing a double take right here. This is what I imagine when I see it. But I don't think they saw some sort of creature that had little tubes coming out of its wrist and it was like spitting out gas at everyone.
No, definitely not. But I have a surprise for you, Zane.
Yeah.
And the listeners there. I'm using my artist skills. I actually did a little bit of forensic drawing with these two family members and did a recreation of what they saw.
Cool.
Did you want me to show that now, or did you?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Did I cut you off on a point?
No, that's fine.
Okay,
we go right into it. Let's get our little CSI rendition of what they saw.
Okay, so I guess to set the scene here, after the interview that you did with him, Zane, I reached out and spoke with each one of them individually to kind of get an idea of what they saw, maybe get a little bit more details that might have been left out during the interview, and see if something like jogged their memories. So let's go. And if you're just listening to us, you have to go to YouTube, obviously, to see this. But this is also a little reference map of where the incident happened. You can see this is in Quebec, and this pinpoint there is the exact spot where it happened. And we zoom in a little bit. Now, this is where that little pin is on that road. This is where their house was. I don't know if it was on that pin directly, but it's one of these houses on this little road here where that pin is. Okay. And then this yellow swirly mark, that is where they had the sighting. So it's kind of like in the woods, kind of halfway between these two roads. Right. And they, like they said, they were on their way to go fishing. So on their way to go fishing, this is where they saw, and it was more wooded during that time and less houses. So it's been built up a little bit, but still pretty sparse. And you can see in the north here, there's a big river that kind of goes around the area where they are. But they were headed toward a creek that was over to the, I guess, west more to go, do some little creek fishing. Can't really see the creek in here, though. Okay, so now after interviewing both of them, I got depictions, and this is what was really interesting to me. Here we go.
Weird.
Yeah, so they both saw something a little bit different. Now, on the left-hand side is your relative A. He was talking about the glass kind of sheet in front of the face. The eyes they mentioned were maybe a little bit bigger than human eyes, but basically the same size as human eyes. And he could see the eyes and the eye whites and stuff like that. And when he was talking in the story that we just listened to, he kept mentioning like the like old time film type of stuff. And, I kind of inquired a little bit more about that because I wasn't quite sure what he was getting at with that. He was referencing how it moved. And if like the frame rates on old movies and how the people kind of move, like it's fast, but it's choppy because of the frame rate's weird. That's how it was moving. It was just kind of like that choppy, quick, jerky movement, I guess. So it looked like those old time movies and how they, kind of move around quick to our eye, but just because the frame rate is off. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, basically it looked like he was wearing a unitard type of thing. Maybe had some boots. It wasn't quite sure. But something on the feet. It was just all pretty much one color of the screen. And my colors might be a little off because I was working with markers instead of my computer because of the renovations. So I didn't have access to it. So, but I think the color was pretty close to this, maybe a little bit darker, more olivey. But essentially, this is what we're looking at. So that's your A one. Saying, what do you think of that one?
I mean, when they mentioned like a kind of faceplate type, I thought more like a helmet. Maybe this is kind of a helmet type thing, but that's just the little googly eyes are kind of funny.
It was interesting on this one. They could see the mouth, so they mentioned the mouth slit there is small, and the eyes were like shocked, like Barney Fife, from Andy Griffith's show. That's kind of the eye kind of look. There was bugging out like that. Yeah. So that's what that was thing. But that's essentially now my process for this is like I'd sketch it. I'd send it over to them to see it, how it would need to change something and see how I get it. So it wasn't just me taking their straight description from the story. I was actually getting them feedback from them to kind of alter it and get it, as close as they remembered it. And that's what the family member A said, that was pretty close to what they remembered. Yeah. Okay. Now on the right side here, we see family member B's description. No face plate. You got that protuberance kind of on the face, like the Snoopy look, almost like a Marvel superhero, like Spider-Man or Deadpool kind of. Look
that's
there.
what he meant. I was having a hard time figuring out what he meant by
that. The eye area there, he said they really didn't see anything. Just it was kind of like a dark space, so that's why the eyes there are just kind of like dark. It wasn't necessarily that's what it was. It was just he didn't recall seeing any features there. Same with the ears and nose, mouth. Didn't notice anything. So, but the profile was kind of like that. Also mentioned that he thought he was wearing some kind of coat, which was different than They said there was no other material there, but this family member remembers some kind of, it seemed like it was wearing some kind of form-fitted type of garment almost. And that now he did mention in the interview, Zane, that he said it wasn't carrying anything, but when I spoke to them, he said no, it was carrying something, but he couldn't make out what it was. Like it wasn't like a fishing pole or a gun or something, but it was something like that shape or size that it was carrying. So that's what it's holding there in its right arm, just some kind of ambiguous form of something. It's walking down there. Also, didn't get a good look at its feet. Didn't see any boots or anything like that. Couldn't recall. So that's why just that. But everything was the same color. So skin, whatever it was wearing on top, all green, all that same shade. There's no real difference there. And the thing was about 6 feet tall. So what do you think of that one?
That's interesting. This was such a great idea to get kind of renditions of what they saw and really kind of like question them. Okay, let's get all these details as much as possible, as much as you can remember. And they both look pretty similar. And what I like about the one on the right is they mentioned that it seemed like they had some sort of task. So maybe this was this creature was doing something. This kind of looks like he's carrying a log, or it could be whatever, but maybe they're building something. But
maybe it's a tool or a weapon of some sort. Who knows?
Right.
I did think it was interesting though that while they're similar, they do have some differences. And when they were speaking in the interview, they had the discrepancy. I saw the footprints. I didn't see the footprints. There was no footprints. There was a face mask, no face mask. It's almost like this thing was like presenting itself to everyone differently, kind of like a skinwalker. It's like, hey, this is what I'm going to show you, and over here I'm going to show you what I look like a little bit different, just to give everybody a little bit of different angle to it. I guess it'd be interesting if their father was around to kind of say what they saw as well. But I thought that was really curious, like the discrepancies here, especially because of the coat. And that seems like a big discrepancy between the two. Like you would recall that or not recall that. So that was kind of that stood out to me a lot. I don't know about. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and one thing, what I like about the one on the left looks maybe more alien. Another one on the right that could be a human dressed in something and is doing something, giving me military vibes or something like that. But that's just kind of the what I'm getting from these.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit odd. Now they didn't mention in the story their ages. Do you recall their ages?
My dad was like 17. My uncle was like 12 or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So they weren't like young, like kid toddlers trying to recall this. So old enough where they, or you have the brain power to kind of explain these things, but it is interesting, like how they described it, and they saw things a little bit differently. I don't know if that's a part of the phenomenon, if it was an alien, why would it look so much differently? Maybe it was something else,
or it could be also just like shock, like people process, random or violent things a little differently for each person and for whatever experience. So, and it sounded like it has happened really quickly, like they said, like, the matter of seconds, maybe 5 seconds or something.
6 to 7 seconds, roughly.
Yeah.
I think is what
So it was just quick.
Yeah. So the one on the left here, that one was moving in that herky-jerky kind of style.
Right.
The one on the right, I didn't get any description like that from its movement. But the one on the left, I did notice their movements were different too, right? So my dogs, they're barking at a green alien. The one on the left,
barking too.
Yeah. The one on the left was when it moved in the woods, it kind of noticed, right? When I did the follow-ups, it noticed them and then did like backed up into the woods. I think like Homer Simpson just kind of that's it. But like kind of like that herky-jerky style. But the one on the right, they said that it just kind of moved from right to left and just went into the woods. So it didn't like notice or do that backwards walk type of thing. So they both like move differently too. So I find, yeah, that was an interesting aspect of that. But the one on the left was supposed to like had more nervous energy. Like it was just kind of like, oh my God, what if I did? They're seeing me. And the one on the right was just like, da, 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 I'm doing my thing, bro. I don't even care. So that was kind of thing. So I had I don't know if you wanted to get into theories yet for this particular sighting.
Well, I kind of wanted to compare. I was thinking about comparing like other aliens, but
okay,
kind of just like us, like just kind of talking about this.
Okay.
Now I'm thinking about it, like it's very interesting and unique. I mean, we already talked about kind of the gray aliens. I mean, there are some. Well, I can show you real quick. I don't want to go into like any aliens that are completely different than what these look like.
Okay.
But there, besides this one at Signs, which I don't know where the inspiration came from, but we'll go through some ones that are. I mean, there's this. It's called Josh, tell me what I'm going to talk about. Reptilians. There's a theory about them. They're obviously like 6 foot tall kind of lizards. There's conspiracy theories that they're dressing up as humans. I don't know.
The Loveland frog.
There's Loveland frog also is like probably maybe something a little bit more similar to what my family members saw. So I mean, this is kind of silly looking, but basically, this is a legendary humanoid frog sighting that occurred in Ohio around 1970, 72. So this is around the same time period.
Okay.
But from what I'm getting is like it looked more like a frog than like this humanoid creature we saw. So this is what the witnesses. I mean, this looks ridiculous. It looks just like a huge frog, but this is. It's different in this one though. It's about 4 feet tall.
Yeah, a little smaller,
shorter. But I feel like this type of creature, alien, what have you, is kind of getting closer to what maybe my family members saw. And then we also had the lizard man of Skateboard Swamp in South Carolina. He's kind of looking like that Signs alien, but this guy looks tall, even though he's crouching. He has a tail though. My family members did not mention a tail.
No tail,
This is getting kind of close.
Yeah.
So this creature reports occurred in the late 80s, and this was, like I said, in South Carolina. Not a lot of credibility to it, but there are some witnesses. And what's interesting, like there are other aliens that I was kind of thinking about talking about, but all these reports and encounters took place like in the US. I had a hard time finding any reports of alien encounters or similar. Maybe there are more monster encounters in Canada. I'm sure there are, but alien encounters, not so much. Maybe UFOs. So interesting to note on that. And then finally, like, I've touched on the military angle a bit. Could it be like some sort of soldier? This isn't Canadian Special Forces. This is Danish, but still a very cool outfit that could be mistaken.
That's neat.
Yeah, they have like these nets that go over their helmets, and then obviously on their helmets they have like these painted eyes that it makes them look very intense.
Are those like holes in the helmet that just look like eyes?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool. I need to get one of those net hats. That's
yeah. I mean, that'd be terrifying if you were walking in the swamp and that guy slowly like appears out. And
I mean, that's like Predator, like, jeez.
Yeah. So this is like the only, I was looking up various international special forces, Navy SEAL type outfits that could maybe fit what my family members saw, and this one seemed maybe the more likely because all the other ones seemed like scuba gear, and my family members, they were pretty adamant like it didn't really look like scuba gear. It was something more like what you had in your renderings.
So you think maybe it could have been like because of the turmoil going on there, that maybe the the Mounties or something had like a special like forest ops team, and they were doing patrols in there, maybe.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to follow up on this, like if there was any type of military bases nearby. You know, who knows? But maybe there was some sort of. I think their telling of this or this experience was a little bit after all this unrest and riots. But who knows? Maybe there was some sort of socialist cells nearby, because they were pretty afraid for their lives at some point. I mean, because this socialist terrorist group, they were going out of their way to try and find Americans too. So it was kind of scary for them. So maybe.
So I know some people might say it's like, well, that explains it. They were having like a mass psychosis experience, and they all just because of the situation that was going on, and they were fearful, and they, kind of had a, what do they call it, mass hallucination of this thing, which was really just from the terrorist cells or whatever up there. Like, I don't like those explanations because it's just like it seems too convenient, But let me bring up my thing back to the stage here real quick.
Those are good. I really like those. The one on the left is creepy, just because it looks like it has a smiley face. Like, hey, I'm peaceful. I'm gonna actually like dissect you.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to run into either. This guy's carrying a big stick, like he's gonna bash you in the head, and then this guy's like, "I'm gonna steal your eyeballs."
Yeah, place it like he took human eyeballs, and that's what's inside.
But this map here, where they saw it, there's a rock quarry, or at least there used to be, like kind of like halfway between where the red dot where the houses are, the yellow place, and then go over where these other houses on the left-hand side are. There was a rock quarry. So I don't know if that kind of plays into anything that was happening around the time too. Although you do see here accounts of rock, quarries and stuff like that attracting certain things. But I think I wanted to mention before I forget. Oops.
All right. Sorry, I took it away.
Oh, take it away now.
Can you put it back?
Let's see. Jeez, that's horrible. That's what the alien said. I thought it was really interesting that they had a delayed acknowledgement of the thing. They saw it, they didn't mention it. They did fishing, and then they came back and they said, "Hey, did you remember seeing that thing?" And like, "Oh yeah, all of them did that." So I thought that was really interesting, and I've heard that phenomenon occur in other situations where people see something. It's like they see it, they just kind of like continue on, doing their thing, and then somebody will mention it later, like, yeah, I did see that. Yeah, that was weird. Like they just kind of like almost like they were like maybe they were abducted and got screen implants, and they were just like, hey, don't recall this until later or something like that. So that is something that does occur in these type of things, and I found that to add credibility to it as far as having a sighting that happened in a group. But here I had a theory here I wanted to float out. I don't know how credible you'll think it is, but maybe something more down to earth, just to give us a little bit of balance here. So this is called the False Face Society. All right, now this is I guess a group of that occurred with like the Iroquois people around the Great Lakes regions. Essentially, it was like a medicine man type of tradition, right? So they call it the False Face Society, and they would put on these masks that would have like these kind of weird faces on them and stuff like that, and do their medicinal rituals and stuff like that they would kind of do, I guess, for during times of I guess to cure sicknesses or whatever like that. So I thought, well, maybe some indigenous people up in that area, because of the unrest, were doing their medicine man practices to kind of like temper down the bad energy there, and maybe like almost a form of praying for things to settle down. Or maybe somebody in that area had one of these masks and removed the hair or something, and just had a green one and was walking around in the woods with it, trying to scare people because of the terrorist cell or something like that. I don't know. That's a theory. I thought maybe that's what happened, because the alien creature wasn't that big. It was 6 foot something, right? So well within the realm of human size, and it wasn't like long fingered or anything. So it looked kind of normal body wise. So I thought, well, maybe that could be a thing. And if you're from America and you're not familiar with this kind of area of the world and what goes on here, that would be something that would strike you as something kind of weird and hard to explain. And I thought about my own experiences. I remember when I was little, I might have told this story before, when I was little and I was at a skating rink, and this was back, in the 80s. And I remember seeing some guy who had these skates on, but they didn't look like everyone else's skates, because back then, you had the 4-wheel skates on your thing, but this was an inline skate. And I hadn't heard of that before. I was young, so I was trying to explain it to my parents when I saw it. I was like, the guy had like trains on his feet. It was like a train, because inline skates to me when I was a kid kind of looked like a train with its row of wheels, and that's how I was describing it. Of course, I was really young, so I was hard to find words to explain it. And they were just like, "What are you talking about? You didn't see anything. That's stupid." But yeah, that's what I saw. It was inline skates. Somebody had early ones of those and was rolling around in the rinks. Of course, your family members here were much older and had the words to describe things, but the cultural not being used to seeing something and kind of describing it in a different way of what makes sense in your mind, I think would be applicable to any age, really. What do you think of that?
That's interesting. Yeah, it makes sense. I kind of touched on this earlier, but I feel like if this happened to me, I would feel like I would have to talk about it right after if we went to the creek bed. But then again, who knows? If I was in the experience, maybe I would have shut down, or I forgot, or got abducted, or whatever. People do, but you're right. There are people who do react that way to something strange, and they're just like, I'm just going to go on with what I was planning on doing, and then maybe I'll process this later, or just naturally the brain will process it later.
Or maybe the aliens implanted it like a suppression thing in their brain.
Maybe.
One thing that's what I hear is like people, it's more to do with the phenomenon repressing the memory until they kind of get out of their realm of influence, and then they can recall it. So maybe the thing was still in the area and it like kind of hazed out their brains to kind of even think about it, so it could go and do its thing or whatever it was doing. And then by the time they were done fishing, it was gone, and they were like, hey, there was something. Hey, did you see this? And like, yeah. So that's why I kind of like, I don't know. It's a weird experience. Like I could see somebody in one of these like false face society masks kind of doing something, but then too, the way they had the different view of the thing, and then all of them didn't recall it until later. It makes me think of something of a different phenomenon. I don't know.
Right. And one depiction had no footprints, and maybe this was some sort of extra dimensional being. It didn't exactly have like the gravity or property matter that we think of. What else?
Skinwalkers.
There was something I was going to say about this, but one thing is both my family members, they aren't freaked out about it, which is interesting. They remember pretty well. You hear other stories of people who witness monsters or these type of creatures, and it really bothers them. So for some reason, they were just like, it kind of happened, and they're okay with it. So kind of cool on that part.
Yeah, and then their father, I guess, didn't really mention. I don't know if he was trying to keep the kids calm, during, and didn't want to bring it up and freak them out more or something like that. Or maybe it was just like a friendly type of entity or whatever. Like I don't know if I would fall on the realm of it being an alien per se, like we think of from outer space, because there is no light phenomenon associated with this particular thing. I did ask about that. There was no flash of light. What's that?
It was during the day, so they would have seen something else like that.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of like think more of like a high strangeness creature interdimensional, whatever you would want to call it, something like that, that just kind of, it shows itself to you in a weird way and then dips out. And maybe it looks a little bit different per person depending on how it wants it to be seen. That's terrifying too. Like, what is that? Like, why is it doing this?
Going back to like it having a possible task, like the creature on the right, but also there seems to be purpose to what it was wearing. Like, this is like springtime, so the leaves look like the background that we're seeing, and it looks like it's trying to stay hidden. So that's interesting in itself.
Oh, good point. Yeah, the green. Yeah. Why the green? And it was weird too, because there was no pattern from what they described either. It wasn't like camouflage pattern or anything like that. It was just all solid color, and there was no like buttons or zippers and stuff like that. It was just all uniform, like a chameleon just trying to blend in to the most prominent color that is in the area. So yeah, that's weird.
It's a crazy story. It's unique from these other interactions that we've heard in all sorts of different cases, I feel like.
And we broke this one on our story, on our podcast. So no one else has it. Come here for the good stuff. But I would be
the Quebec Woods encounter, but if any of our fans can give us some better names for it, because there might be a better name for this thing. It's just
the Quebec Googly Moogly.
Yeah. Well, those eyes, it definitely got some googly eyes, so that might work for it.
Yeah, I don't know. The Quebec Googly Moogly.
Well,
I would be interested if anyone else have seen something like this, though. If you have, definitely let us know. Hey guys at telltaleguys.com, or hit us up on our socials or whatever.
We talked about how, like, maybe this is some sort of kind of chameleon thing is trying to stay hidden in the foliage, even though it's not a complete camouflage type thing going on. But the first rendition seems kind of surprised that it got spotted. So maybe they thought they were pretty safe with what they were wearing or their skin color. Who knows? Interesting stuff.
Yeah. And going kind of to the theory of things around, rocks like quartz quarries or whatever, and water where they were going to, like the energy that surrounds it. Maybe they just like walk through a vortex of energy or something, and it was was able to unveil it, while it was there. And it wasn't expecting to see them. And it's just, I don't know, man. This is a weird one. It doesn't.
I know.
I haven't seen. I mean, I'm pretty into this stuff. So I haven't encountered any stories of anything like this.
Isn't that cool? I'm glad we were able to talk about it then, because it was always a crazy story to me. So, and that's cool.
Keep them coming.
You did a follow-up interview and got a little bit more specific, so that was good. Well, I since you already did a drawing of your own Quebec Googly Moogly, I will do my version.
Okay.
And see what I can do. I feel like I'm going to be inspired by these guys. But
okay, very good. So I guess so I'm not gonna draw because I already did my drawings, but Zane's gonna do it in 30 seconds to wow you guys. So let's give you your theme. You ready, Zane?
I'm ready.
All right.
Will they draw? We wonder, will it be a house of cat or thunder? Oh no, the pictures suck, oh dear. But we cheer them all, my friends, let's hear. Josh is sketching something round. Zane's lines are all over town. Crayons flying, colors burst, but their art is the worst.
All right.
Okay, Zane. Here, I got to move you over to the other side there. There you go.
Okay. I'm going to maximize.
Yeah. Let's see. Zane's Googly Moogly.
How do I?
Do I need to do it?
You try it. There
you go. Okay. It's giving a thumbs up there. I like it.
I guess I'm inspired by like him being like surprised and like, whoa.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah. He's a Googly Moogly.
I tried to go with like the light bulb type shape and all that.
Yeah.
So, but
pretty good. Or a lizard, it could be It's kind of lizardy looking. I
Yeah.
like it. Good job, Zane. Good job on bringing the stories and the drawings as well.
Yeah.
I'd say if any other family members of Zane's are listening, that have cool stories. It seems like the aliens like to follow you guys in the woods and at baseball games. You know,
I know.
let us know.
Yeah, I brought up one of those stories in our first episode about weird things in space, the one like the orange orb that shot away. But I mean, when I was thinking about this episode, I was like, there are a couple of things I've saw, but like, was it just a mental thing? I don't know, because I was so fixated on that stuff. So who knows? But
we're gonna have to do some like was it hypnotherapy on you and your family members to see if you guys have gotten abducted, and that might be fun.
God. I'm just grateful, like I said, that they're okay with this. Like it's not it doesn't bother them, which is great. I know that's a hard thing for a lot of other people that you hear about.
Yeah.
So just to final, before we go away, what do you think they saw?
I mean, I think like if I had to pick something, I would lean to just like this generic, the phenomenon, like of high strangeness, whatever it is, some interdimensional type of entity or energy that likes to, some people call it the trickster entity. Like it just likes to F with you, and it does different things to different people. This one didn't necessarily feel so much like a nuts and bolts type of alien. My dogs agree. Like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like E.T. and it was coming down collecting samples. Like, it seems like it was more, man, they're like...
I just had my brother-in-law come in earlier, so we've had chaos of all the animals today, so.
My dogs are much bigger, so they're much louder. But yeah, so I think that was what I was just. I kind of attribute to just the phenomena is what I'll call it. What about you? What do you think?
I like that because it's different than what we've heard from other kind of normal descriptions of aliens and their patterns and how the events are led up to the interactions. Seems like my family members just randomly ran into this thing randomly ran into them, and they both didn't expect it. And some intergalactic, interdimensional, just strange thing. It's not the typical creature that we're used to, but thankfully not violent.
Yes, thankfully. All right, well, I guess if y'all want to share your phenomenon, people, the things that you guys see, or if you've seen the Quebec googly moogly, is that what we're calling it?
That's okay with me. Yeah.
All right. If you guys have seen a googly moogly of your own, let us know.
If you've seen something like this seems kind of an interdimensional type creature. Yes. Let us know. With boobs. Anyways. All right.
All right.
All right.
Later.
Bye.
In the woods of Quebec, the night so still, Zane's family found a creature that gave a thrill. It was green and tall, with eyes that glow. Was something French no one could know. With a wiggle and a jiggle, it made it stand. Josh picked up a pencil and drew with his hand. The creature stood there like a dream so grand. Quebec, googly moogly from another land. Googly moogly, look at you in the forest, night and morning dew. Are you from the stars or just passing through? We can't decide, but your color's true. Mom screamed and laughed out loud. Could it be an alien or a long-lost cloud? They all gathered around the forest shroud. Mystery in the air and hearts unbowed. Oh, it vanished quick like a northern light, left them guessing in the cold moonlight. Josh's drawing was their only sign of the googly moogly who took flight. Googly moogly, look at you in the forest, night and morning. True. through. We can't decide, but your color's true.